Hello, welcome. I'm the Renegade Gamer. I haven't done one of these in a while. I'm going to do one now. So the review today is on Final Fantasy 15. Now you may be wondering why haven't I talked about Final Fantasy 15? I got a very easy explanation for you. And on the PS4 until roughly July of 2017. 2017. And because of that matter, I really didn't go and follow all the news of Final Fantasy V. I mean, I knew the game had been in development for 10 years. I knew the game was originally called Final Fantasy 13 Versus. But I mean, a lot of the story department in that game, I just didn't follow. Because I was waiting for a certain time to come to purchase a PS4. I've been waiting for the library to grow, and I got a deal on PS4, so I went ahead and bought Final Fantasy 15. So here's the review. Let's talk about Final Fantasy 15. Now, Square did some really interesting stuff in this game. The whole first part of the game is, of course, open world, and then the second part of the game is very linear. Now, I don't have a real issue with linearity. I don't really have an issue with corridor syndrome, as a lot of people call it. 13 had that. It didn't bother me. It was just kind of one of those things. Well, this kind of, y'all could have did a lot more, but whatever, you know. So the linearity of the second part didn't really bother me. But I want to talk about the first part again, the big open world section. I really enjoyed searching all around the world. I liked exploring all of it. I liked exploring around Hammerhead. I liked exploring around Stalin, even around the volcanic area, which I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It was a lot of fun to run out there and just find stuff. I mean, I found several dungeons that weren't listed on the map at all, you know, by just doing a hunt. I'll give you an example. There's a hunt that you can take, I think it's an Old Stalin, where you got to kill a couple of iron giants at night. And the place it gets you at, I went there and I killed the two iron giants and realized that I was on a path. And I was like, well, where's this path go up to? And I found a fishing spot off the beaten path, and then when I kept on moving on up, I found a dungeon. To which I went into and died. And the only reason I died is because I wasn't paying attention to the HP gauge. Yeah, the open world was a real nice thing. I really enjoyed that aspect of the game. Once the game became more linear, the plot kicked in, and I was left with a lot of questions. But the open world section I thought was done well. I know a lot of people complain that there's nothing in the open world. There's no animals or anything like that. I don't really know what they're talking about. I ran into enemies all the time. And it was just a joy to explore. For me. But I'm not the hardest gamer to please, okay? So let's talk about some of the aspects of this, though. So you're given a car in the open world, and you're able to ride down the road and listen to fantastic, old, nostalgic Final Fantasy music. I actually made it a point not to listen to it for quite some time. And you may be like, Renegade, why? Because I want to hear Final Fantasy 15's music. I love a lot of nostalgic Final Fantasy music, but I wanted to hear 15's. And 15's music itself is done very well. It's a very good soundtrack. Not a lot of songs on it I did not like. After I'd heard what I wanted to hear out of it, I pretty much listened for like 7 or 8 hours of nothing but 15 music. Then I started changing over to the older classic ones. But I wanted to really give the musical soundtrack a chance. And I think Shimomura did a very good job with this musical composition. Graphics. I think the graphics in the game look really well. I think they're done pretty good. I think they'll age pretty well as well. But I have to admit something, and I know I'm probably going to catch flack for this. I think that Final Fantasy 15's graphics look astonishing. But I would be lying if I said I thought that 13's graphics looked better. Just an opinion. It's just an opinion. I actually think a lot of games still look good on PS3, but that's me. But graphically wise, I do think that the graphics in 15 look really good and are very well done. Tabata did a very good job on that aspect. Speaking of Tabata, I also have to give the man at least credit. He came in right after Nomura was spinning the wheels, and it was just a mess. And he was able to construct a... he basically was able to construct something out of the mess. Whether or not it's good or you like it, that's a different matter. But I am happy that the man was at least able to kind of construct a cohesive story, sort of. It's not the best one in the Final Fantasy series, but it at least is there. But I will get to this. I want to talk more about the story, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about gameplay right now. So, 15 has a few flaws with its gameplay. First off, playing 15 is a lot of fun. I enjoyed the gameplay of 15 quite a bit. But 15 is very easy. And there are a few flaws here that I saw throughout the game. Now, you may be like, well, what do you mean by it's too easy? Well, essentially, you have two health gauges. You have your current health, and then you have your max health. And depending on an attack you get from an enemy, it'll decrease it. Now, if this bar, your current health, goes down to 0, it doesn't mean game over. All you have to do is pop a potion or elixir, and you'll be fine. If this bar, however, your max health goes all the way down, and you don't pop a Phoenix down, which you're given about maybe 2 seconds to do so, maybe a little more, 2 seconds, it is game over. This makes the game a little bit too easy, because essentially, as long as you keep a full stock of restoratives, you're probably not going to game over, unless you're not paying attention, which what I did. I literally just wasn't paying attention, and I got one shot by a necromancer. And it was like a few seconds. I had turned away, and when I looked back, I was like, "Oh shit!" And before I could hit the thing up, I died. But so yeah, that was a real big flaw in the gameplay. It's a little too easy. There are other flaws though. The game needed a better lock-on system. Kingdom Hearts came out years ago, has a better lock-on system than 15 does. There are a lot of times I was wanting to target a certain enemy, and I just could not get him to target it. He would target this one way over here. So the combat, basically, I just learned to deal with the targeting system. I was like, okay, I'm just doing hit-and-run tactics. Warp Strike, hit, get over here, refill mana. Warp Strike here, hit, refill mana. And when in dungeons, I did kind of the same thing, except this time I moved around a lot more and Warp Strike, and and it would basically dodge, which brings up another problem. Now, this isn't true through the entirety of the game. There are enemies that can actually hit you, but holding down square to automatically dodge everything was a little ridiculous. There was a lot of skill into it. However, there is some dynamic to it as well, because you're basically, if you hit the square at a certain time, you can parry the attack and automatically counterattack, which does a pretty good amount of damage. But I felt like the game itself, the combat part, that whole area right there, should have been refined a little bit more. Basically, maybe if you are going to dodge, instead of just holding down square to hit square so you would dodge, you also have the dodge roll, which is attached to the same button, which is another issue I'll get to in a minute. Yeah, so that was kind of an issue. Also, the camera. Now, the camera is a good thing and a bad thing. Okay, the way this game is designed, when you're in open world, the camera usually works well as long as you ain't around bushes. When you're in a dungeon, good luck. However, I will give Square credit because they at least gave you free control of the camera, so you can spin the camera back around to where you can see what the hell you're hitting. But I'm not going to lie, the camera needs to work, okay? It's not the worst camera I've ever played with. That would probably be Tilted Hysteria. But it was kind of aggravating to mess with. Okay, so let's talk about mapping your actions to your control. Multiple buttons are mapped, or rather, only a few buttons have multiple things that map to them. Running requires you that you hit circle with a stamina bar. Talking to somebody is X. Jumping is X. If you see something on the item to pick it up, it's X. There was many times I would find an item on the ground and I'd want to pick it up, and then Noctis would jump instead of picking it up. And I'm like, okay, well, it was just a little small thing, but it was aggravating because I mean, like, I just want to pick up the item. Why can't I just pick up the item? You want to jump? Why is this an issue? But I mean, like I said, it's a very, very minor complaint, and it was that way with quite a few of the buttons. There was like the square button I brought up earlier. Having multiple things mapped to the same button is never a really great idea in combat. You can get away with it in some games, but you better have those controls really refined to do so. And in this case, I did feel that the controls were not as defined as they should have been. There were also times when I couldn't get Noctis to actually attack. I would hit circle to attack, and it would actually be almost a second or two later that he would actually swing the weapon to attack, because the enemy's way over there and he won't target the enemy in front of him, and it was just aggravating. But like I said, I did enjoy the combat in the game. It's just that there was small aggravations throughout. There's one last aggravation to the game that I disliked. Your summons, or the astrals, if you wish to call them that. The astrals were extremely cool, extremely overpowered. Basically, the game's fuck you to the enemy, and would usually one-shot whatever you were fighting. The problem was, to cast said thing, said summon / astral, you never really knew how to do that because it kind of showed up whenever the hell they wanted to. You'd get an audio cue, the screen would kind of darken a little bit, and then finally the summon button would show up. I used just the regular standard fighting style, so mine was L2. But the problem is you'd hold the L2 button. If you're doing any interaction, or if you're moving or anything else, it won't work. You have to completely do nothing except hold the L2 button for probably a good 2-3 seconds to start the animation of the summon. And I felt that was an issue. I thought that they could have fixed that a little bit better. Also, give you the access to use the summons whenever you wished. Would have been a better move, because as it stands, I saw Rama God knows how many times, Shiva 3 times, Leviathan once, and Titan twice. And I've read up and I understand now some ways you can kind of get it to work, but this should not have been an issue. Okay. It was probably the worst aspect of one of the worst aspects of the battle system is the summoning system that they have. That being said, like I said, I do enjoy this battle system, but it's a very flawed battle system. It needed probably at least another 6 months to a year to refine. But what we got, I still had fun with. Side content. Okay, so this open world, it has a lot of side quests, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's very easy to get overpowered at the very beginning of the game by doing all the side quests, because you get experience after every side quest. So it's very easy to get overpowered. In fact, when I beat the game, I was at level 57, I believe. And the required level, I think that you actually have to be is somewhere around maybe 40, 45. And the only reason I did that is because I was doing a ton of side quests. Now let's talk about the side quests in general, themselves though. Now I liked the side quests. I did. I liked all the side quests. They gave just enough information about what's going on with little tidbits here and there about what the world was like. And that I enjoyed it quite a bit. But I can understand why some people don't. I understand why some people find the side quests quite boring. And yes, they're right. A lot of them are go to point A, make this thing disappear, collect this item, report back to point A. You know, report back to the person that gave you the quest as being very boring. I do understand that quite a bit. But I did like it. I did like the side quests in the game quite a bit. The rewards I did find very useful. The money especially is also kind of cool because some of the areas I didn't even know were there. I found through some of the side quests. In fact, one side quest Cindy gives you, I wouldn't even known existed in that dungeon because it never would have occurred to me to go to that area to find a dungeon until she gave me that side quest. So the side quest giving off a lot of exploration in that aspect I liked. What I didn't really care for was the fact that some of the side quests were go to this area and hunt down a few items. Except that you get in the area and you literally have to hunt down the fucking items. It's just you have a block area and you're like, okay, where is the freaking item? You know, Dino had one mission I recall really well where I ended up in a forest by a fishing spot. And I got there right before nighttime and I found the first place. And then, of course, the creature showed up. And had to kill all the creatures, and it was hunting them down, and then more creatures showed up. And, or demons. More demons showed up. Had to kill them. It was actually almost noon the next day before I found all the crystals that he wanted. And I had killed God knows how many monsters that kept spawning. Demons that kept spawning in that area. It was ridiculous. And most of it was because basically I was in combat, but and it made it sound like a small. It's just a small complaint, I guess. It's just one of those things that kind of annoyed me. Fishing, I found a lot of fun in this game. It was a lot of fun to try to figure out what lure would bring in what fish. A lot of fun. I actually enjoyed fishing quite a bit. Chocobo racing, another game that was pretty fun. Very basic Chocobo racing game, but still a lot of fun. But the Chocobos themselves are fucking awesome. I love the whole thing with the Chocobos. The ability to name your Chocobo, change the color, leveling your Chocobo up to where you can do combat with you. It was all fun. I enjoyed the Chocobos all the time. I usually would get out of the car, run around with the Chocobo, and just just have a lot of fun doing that, exploring the territories. So, a lot of fun with that. Even though that technically is a very, very minor side quest that you, the side thing you can do with the Chocobo racing. Still a lot of fun. Cooking was hilarious. I've come up with a new recipe. But cooking I did find quite humorous and very beneficial. The only problem I had was at certain points I didn't have a lot of cash, so I usually just bought restoratives and not a lot of ingredients. However, once I did finally get enough, I started buying more ingredients. He's learned more recipes. But the problem with cooking was that while the buffs are very useful in the game, to level up, it was a lot more useful not to use the campsites and just use hotels, because you had the modifier on them. That being said, the cooking was not a bad information, not a bad thing. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Also, the food looked amazing, and all of them, especially all the food looked amazing. I really liked the noodle side quest. I found it humorous. Also, pretty good, pretty humorous way to advertise for a cup of noodles. But I have a unique sense of humor too, so. See what else here we got. What are side quests that are in the game? I think I've named off most of them except for the hunts themselves. Let's talk about the hunts. So the hunts were fun. I enjoyed doing the hunts quite a bit. However, there is a very big problem with the hunts. Two big problems with hunts. Now, in Final Fantasy XII, we had the ability to do hunts, and you could accept as many hunts as you wanted in Final Fantasy XII. In Final Fantasy 15, you can accept one hunt at a time, which is aggravating, because it would mean that you had to kill this enemy, you'd have to go to this person, get the hunt, go kill that enemy, then return back to the person, receive your reward, collect another hunt from the person, go kill enemy, go back. It created it created a lot of back and forth, and that got kind of old after a while. Also, while I did like the hunts quite a bit, and they were a lot of fun, there was only, I think, about 2 or 3 that actually had kind of a story going on with it. What I mean by that is the behemoth with Chocobo actually had kind of a story going on there. He was going around killing the Chocobos, and they didn't want to open the Chocobo thing because of that. I wish there was more hunts in the game that had more of a story aspect to it like that. But like I said, I still enjoyed doing the hunts. They were a lot of fun. Dungeons. 15 sports a very interesting ideal. I like the dungeon design of 15. I thought 15 had very well placed dungeons. They were done very well. Each one of them, none of them really had anything that was identical to the other. They all were very unique. And Castlemark can go fuck itself. And so can the Piteous dungeon. But I had a lot of fun with the dungeons. I thought they were very well designed dungeons. A lot of twists, turns, curves. Very easy to they were just well designed, I guess is the best thing I can say for them. I enjoyed them quite a bit. Also enjoyed the fact that on the world map itself, in the open world, you would run across just random enemies sometimes that were really powerful. The one that comes to mind immediately is the Midgar Zola snake. I don't know, it was just kind of fun. You just run across some of these enemies like that. Let's see. So let's move off the open world topic and go to the linear path. Altissa was an interesting area. It was graphically beautiful. It was a graphically beautiful area, very reminiscent of Venice, and I liked it. But I also found it a very confusing town to navigate in. Now, what I mean by that is whenever you're on the boats, no big deal. You just get floated down to the next ferry you wanted to. But if you got off the boats and you were moving around the city, it was very easy to get twists turned around and not be able to figure out how to get back down to the damn docks, or where you were trying to go. And it made the area kind of a pain in the ass to go to. go through. But I did very much like the city. I like the aesthetics of the city. I thought it was done very well. And then after that we have Tenenbaum. I don't know if that area was called Tenenbaum or not. Tenement, maybe it was Tenement. Anyway, when you get on the train and you stop and you have to go down to the swamp. Very interesting area. I liked it a lot. I wish there was more to it. Also, Tenement itself. I wish we could have got to explore. We didn't get the chance to. Sucks. Moving on. So we finally make it to the Niflheim Empire area, and chapter 13. Yeah, this is the area that most gamers hate, and I understand completely why. My viewpoint on chapter 13 is easy. The story stuff I loved. I loved every aspect of the story stuff. I loved the fact that Arden's taunting you through the entire dungeon. I love the twists and turns that occur. So anything with the story, I was with. I loved that part. Gameplay, not with. The Ring of the Lucii, I didn't find that very. I honestly didn't like. I need to make one thing clear too before I continue with chapter 13. Now I'm a truck driver. I have mobile Wi-Fi. So when I played this game, it had a gargantuan update that it wanted to do. That was roughly, I think, about 15 gigabytes. I actually finished this game before the gigabytes got into place. So when I played the game, I actually played the most bare bones part of it. Why do I bring this up? Because in chapter 13 itself, the version I played, the Ring of Lucii, was almost useless, with the exception of one spell. And that spell was the Holy Spell, the guarding spell, which is basically how I made it through the entire area, was to let them beat the shit out of me so they could damage themselves, because I couldn't get enough power out of the ring. But from what I've read and what I've seen, if you got that full update into your system, they fixed that area, and the ring's actually pretty useful. I just didn't get to play it that way, which sucks. But it's the case. But yeah, so we had a very survival horror type dungeon that we're going through alone. And honestly, it just didn't work. It really did. Like I said, the story aspects are great. The gameplay of that area is just annoying. So yeah, chapter 13, not a fan. Then we get to chapter 14. You know, you can already tell a lot of content is cut out of this game, but nowhere is that more apparent than chapter 14. Because it's 10 years into the future, and the entire world has basically become the world of darkness. The ruined world, you know? A world of ruin. And you get there and monsters or demons are just everywhere. Places are destroyed. There's no civilization. And it's just one of the most horrible, nightmarish settings that I've ever seen occur. Outside the little portion that we got to explore around the port, which was very, very small, we didn't get to see the rest of the damage that was done. which is supposed to be rectified in Comrades, which is coming out in the DLC at some point. But this was a big misstep because, and I'll get to this more in the story, a lot more could have been focused during that 10 years on the other characters, building back to the return of Noctis. You could have really done a lot more character stuff with the other characters and built up that period about them fighting against, trying to hold on for a last essence of the Chosen One to return. But they didn't. And it's a damn shame. And one of the things that I found weird about that is that you're in the truck and you're riding towards Hammerhead, and if you're looking around, you can see all these high-leveled enemies all over the place. Unless they're in the Menace dungeons, which I freely admit I didn't go through, those are the only areas I know in the game that they're at. And you never see them anywhere, unless they're in the Menace dungeons. I might be wrong. It just seemed like a waste. A wasted potential that could have been a really interesting aspect. It would have been a great contrast because we'd already explored a living, breathing, open world, and then explore a dead world. It would have been an interesting contrast, and I think it would have worked well for it. Especially if you're not taking control of Noctis right off the bat. I think it could have worked really well. But that's opinion. So then we get to Hammerhead, and from there, basically go straight to the end of the game, which is in Insomnia, I think. I don't know, they kept calling the town so many different names. Lucii, I think it was actually named the city's Lucii, but it's called Insomnia. So anyway, we go there. We get 2 screens full of enemies. Okay, that's interesting. We see the debris of the city and everything. Sorry, 3 screens because I forgot the subway. And then you get in the building, you go up an elevator, and then you face the final boss. I think there could have been a lot more to it. I think you should have started on the outskirts of the city and made your way towards the skyscraper. I think it would have worked a little better because it really does feel condensed right there. Also, got to say that the final boss fight wasn't that hard. It was kind of anticlimactic in a way, but it was okay. I mean, it was an okay fight. It just seemed very anticlimactic, I guess, is the problem I had with it. So, yeah, that's everything I think of with that area. I don't really know where I was going with all that, but just kind of running through the game as I was thinking about it. So let's talk about story. Now, we know from the glorious internet that has been created for us that Final Fantasy Versus had a very different story than what Final Fantasy 15 has. And if there's anywhere that this game falls flat on its face, unfortunately, is the story. There are aspects to this story that hold a lot of potential and are great building blocks for something grand. The problem is that's all they are. The building blocks. There's no cement in between. There's no refinement in it. It's just the flat building blocks. So it feels a lot like a ladder going up. It's a really strange analogy, just stick with me. It feels like a ladder going up that's missing a step here, a step here. So you're like going up, you're having to kind of take a leap over this step, a leap over that step, and a leap over that step, because they're just missing. And that's what 15's story feels like a lot. It's just this huge chunks gone out of it, and it really does hurt it in a lot of ways. Now the bare basic aspects of it are there, but it's just missing so much. And Tabata has came out and basically said that he doesn't, that he will try to improve it. you got a lot of work to do, Tabata. Your DLCs that you keep sending out are nice. Don't get me wrong. Chocobo Festival is great. Assassin's Festival is interesting. You know, the DLCs for Prompto and Gladius are really... I liked both of them. You need to work more on the main game of trying to get more of the story in it, if that's the case. Because the scenes that are missing really do hurt this story quite a bit. And it comes down to the characters as well. Ravus is a prime example of this. We have very few little reason to understand Ravus. Even after playing episode Prompto 13, chapter 13, verse 2, there's still so much left out of that. It's hard to really piece together what the fuck was going on with him. Why did he change his mind? Luna herself, who is a character I did like, barely felt like she was in the plot a lot of times. And she's supposed to be your main heroine. In fact, I would say that Iris got more screen time than she did, than Luna did. And Iris was honestly not that important a character in the long run, as much as Luna was supposed to be. And then you have the characterizations of other characters as well. Core gets his characterization in Gladius DLC, because in the game there's none. I mean, literally, he's not in. He's nothing. He's there, the king's royal bodyguard, and he's gone. And you see him like twice again in the game. Once he apologizes for felling the king, and the next time you see him watching TV, watching the speech of Luna. We never see him again. We hear one line of dialogue about him, of him training Iris, and that's it. Cid, who could have been a real interesting character to really explore, get a lot of more background with Regis, considering that the two were friends, and it would have really fleshed him out quite a bit. Both Cid and Regis. We get very little backstory there. We get a few lines. And it's kind of funny, too, because literally once you hit Altissa and get through the immigration, he disappears from the plot completely. He's gone. Never shows back up again. It's mentioned in chapter 14, but quite literally is gone. Don't know how he got back to the mainland don't know how he got back to where, you know, the Hammerhead areas and all that mess. No clue. He's just gone from the plot. Altina, or Arena, I think it's her name. She does, of all the characters, she's probably the one that gets the most characterization in the entire game, besides Arden himself. And that's mostly because of episode Prompto. She gets a shitload of characterization there. Has done quite well. I really enjoyed her character. I liked her quite a bit. You can also glitch the game to get her in your party. For the rest of it, involves going to a certain area around Hammerhead, fighting a red giant. But I don't know. Oh yeah, if you do get her in your party, she's immortal. She won't ride the car with you though. She just runs after it. Anyway, so there was a lot of. I liked the character quite a bit. I just wish there was more of her in the main game. Biggs and Wedge were awesome. Other characters we need to see more of was the Emperor, who's barely in the main plot. You see one scene with him, and I didn't even know he was the fucking demon thing at the end of the game, or at the end of chapter 13. I had no clue that it was even him. Until I went through and watched another person play it. I was like, oh, okay. But very little going on there. Just he needed more screen time. Which brings me to a point about the multimedia thing, which I am going to discuss last. But the last character here is well, I'll talk about the boys and the last character. So the boys, Noctis, Ignis, Gladius, and Prompto. I really liked all these characters. I didn't know if I was going to like Prompto, but actually did enjoy his character quite a bit. I thought they played well off each other. Gladius basically being your standard strongman, Prompto the free carefree guy, Ignis the stick in the mud, and then Noctis kind of the layabout. I thought they had great interactions. I loved all the this little small banter that they had with each other, and had a lot of great chemistry with one another. I really felt like these four were friends, and really cared about one another quite a bit. However, I've had heard the issue of saying that they're nothing but essentially yes men. Well, maybe, but it doesn't change the fact of the matter that they work well as a unit. I do wish that they would have got a little bit more characterization. I also wish Noctis would have got a little bit more characterization. But what is here is good. It's just you need a little bit more. That's all. Now let's talk about the best character in the game. That's almost completely fully realized. There's just a few things here we don't understand about the character. Is Arden. Arden was an excellent villain. Really reminiscent of Kefka in a lot of ways. Just not batshit crazy insane. Well, I guess he is insane, but not to the degree Kefka was. Still, a very interesting villain. The main problem I had with him was I had no clue what his damn motivations were. I was like, okay, I get you're screwed. Chapter 13 is a great example of this. I get you want me to have the ring. I get that you're screwing with my head. I get that you're wanting me to, you're trying to hurt me through my friends, I get what you're doing. You're trying to hurt me through friends. I get you're doing all this. I don't know why you're doing all this. I don't know why you want me to have all the swords of all the kings. I don't know why you helped me earlier. I don't know why you're doing all this. I don't know why you want me to get in the crystal. I couldn't figure out his damn motivation. I was like, why? That's the key question. I was like, what are your motivations? What's your end game here? And the game kind of explains it, but it's kind of poorly explained. I mean, I know that basically Noctis's ancestors basically screwed over Arden from ascending to godhood after he accepted all the demons, but it's kind of poorly explained. It was just one of the things. It's one of those things that I felt like the storytelling part could have used a lot more work in that area. That being said, I thought Arden was a very interesting villain. I liked the fact that he basically liked to screw with your head. Illusions was a big part of it. I thought one of the best scenes in the game was aboard a train sequence where you are fighting Arden, but you're not actually fighting Arden. You're just fighting the illusion pasted over Prompto. I don't know. I found that very interesting sequence. And just kind of showed how good he is at manipulating others. I wish there was more to Arden than we saw, but I don't know. Maybe we'll get the Arden game Tabata's talked about. I just hope he doesn't do a damn comic book. So, this is the last section of the game, and I'm going to talk about. This, to me, is probably the worst aspect of Final Fantasy 15. It's the fact that the game is spread across so much media, it's insane. We have an anime. We have a movie. We have technically it's not canon, but we have King's Tale, we have Episode Deuce, we have the Omen trailer, we got the DLCs, we got the other DLCs, we have basically any knowledge you have of some of Final Fantasy 13 versus plot. You had that kind of helps out with learning about Final Fantasy 15's plot. A little bit, just a little bit, not much. And we have Final Fantasy 15, and there's a dozen other ones that I'm not even getting into. Not to mention the mobile games, which are I'm not even touching. Okay, that's a whole nother ball game. My point is this: if you create a story, that story should be able to just stand on its own. It shouldn't need all the supplemental material to understand a story. Okay? I'm going to talk about Star Wars just for a second here. Star Wars A New Hope is a movie that you can watch and you can understand what the hell is going on. You may not know all the aspects of the story as far as what species this race is over here or anything else, but the basic outline of that story is very understandable. All the parts are met and you are given all the information you need to follow said story. Final Fantasy 15 does not do that. The parts that you need to understand or are important are not in the game. And well, that's not completely true. Certain important parts of the story are not in the game. If you want to know more about King Regis, you have to watch Kingsglaive, and even there you're going to get a very, very little part of it. If you want to know how the Empire invaded Lucii, you got to watch Kingsglaive. If you want to know more about Ignis, Prompto, and Gladius before this journey started, you got to watch Brotherhood. Through King's Tale, even though it's technically got canon, we at least get the ideal of what King Regis was doing with Cid and them in the background. It's at least an ideal. My point is that you should not have to have all the supplemental material to fill in the gaps of the story that you left out. We should not have to be purchasing DLC for Prompto, Ignis, and Gladius to get more of the story in that aspect. That should have been in the game to begin with. But it isn't. We got a lot more understanding about what was going on in Chapter 13 with the MTs through episode Prompto than we did in Final Fantasy 15. We got the very, very, very bare bones of what's going on with there in 15, but Prompto, they explained it a lot better. That's my issue with this mass multimedia bullshit way that they're doing this. It should not be done that way. If you want to tell just a simple story, it should be all right here. If you want to flesh it out, that's fine. But you start with the fucking simple ass story right here. Finish this part, and then you can flesh out and do other things. If you want to make a movie, you can really flesh that part out. If you want to do, if you really want to show all the invasion and everything else about how that happened up to then you would show that. But you need to have all that into the game itself. Have us understand why things are important. Luna is a great example of this again. A lot of people didn't resonate with the fact that she died within the game. They didn't. I know several people that resonated a lot more because Ignis was blinded than Luna dying in the game. And the reason is because they didn't know anything about her. They didn't know anything. I mean, if you watch Kingsglaive, at least you got an idea of who the character was. But in the game itself, you really don't get that much from her. And that's the problem with a lot of aspects of 15. In this massive multi way they're doing it, you are missing out on so much stuff because they can't place it all in the game. And that's the thing that bothered me the most. Is like, I know there's an answer to this. I'm going to have to go outside to search out supplemental material so I can understand what the fuck's going on here. And I hate that shit. I should not have to go out and read a fucking novel or whatever so I can figure this out. I'll give Final Fantasy 13 one thing. At least in 13, all the information was in 13. You had to read it, but at least it was there. 15, you have to go outside the game, watch movies, read books, whatever, to really get the information. Now, there is some information in the game itself, but it's very spread out. If you go around and find the little astral books, whatever they're called, they give you little bits of lore there, but it wasn't a lot. And there was a lot of pieces that's missing throughout the So 15 left me weirdly left me in a weird state. There was one thing I couldn't figure out, because I watched the ending of 15 and I understood what was going on. Having no idea what was going on, because I didn't read didn't follow this production, didn't really follow much of 13 verses. The ending of 13, I understood exactly what was going on. It didn't confuse me at all. I got it. I was like, okay, all the kings of the old are going to kill Ardyn. Ardyn is apparently the harbinger of the parasitic black virus thing that darkened the sky. Okay, they killed him, destroyed him completely. In turn, it kills Noctis. Okay, I understood completely. And then the final scene where him and Luna are married, I was like, oh, okay, afterlife, got it. I didn't understand the confusion there. It made sense. It made sense in my head. I was like, okay, it's an afterlife scene. Okay. But I saw a lot of people just confused on the internet. They were like, I don't get it. What happened in 15? I was like, it's not that hard. I just didn't understand why so many people were confused in that part. It made sense to me. But maybe I just was thinking very, right here in the bubble. I wasn't really thinking outside of it. So 15 left me very, very uneven. I liked a lot of aspects of 15. I did like the story in 15. I just wish there was more of it. I liked the open worldness of 15. I liked the characters in 15. I liked the music in 15. I liked a lot of the content that was just there in 15 in general. And even though I say that, I liked the game so much, what I really wanted to do was love the game to death. And there's just so much missing out of the game. And just so many little things that are just irksome. I can't. So in the end, it's a game I just like. I just like the game, and that's it. I don't, I think the game is ultimately just mediocre. It's not amazing. It's not terrible. It's just right down the middle. And, what sucks is that we've been getting a lot of these kind of games. Metal Gear Solid 5 was a game that I thought was just very mediocre. Although, I will say, I think Final Fantasy 15 is a better game. But, I don't know. The gameplay of Metal Gear Solid 5 is pretty good. But, it just hurt. It hurt. It hurt to play this game and finish it, because I saw the makings of an epic masterpiece, and it just wasn't all there. And that's one of the biggest problems with 15 for me, is that it had so much potential, and it just is not there. It just dropped the ball on all of it. But like I said, I cannot really blame Tabata on all of that, because even though 13 Versus was in development for 10 years, 15 was only in development for 3. once everything was scrapped. So, I don't know. Anyway, I guess as a final score, since I do a 5, and I've been kind of moving away from this mess, but from the scoring system, but I'll give it a score. I'm just going to go with what I said. It's a mediocre game that had aspects of being fantastic. I do find myself still playing it. I do find myself enjoying the game still. But at the end of the day, I have to give it a 3 out of 5. It could have been a lot better. It just didn't deliver. Anyway, I'm the Renegade Gamer, and I hope you all have a great night, day, evening, wherever you are. Wherever you are, take care of yourself, and I'll catch you next time.